Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone out there, wherever you might be. Welcome to another episode of the Causal Takes Podcast. I'm Greg Coleman, and no pun intended when I say this, y'all. No pun intended. But the Eagles leave Arrowhead with two different things. The Eagles are now 2-0 in the season with two wins on the year, and the Chiefs are 0-2 with two losses. And so, not a lot of teams can say that they're 2-0. And so, I'm very happy and very blessed that they're in this position. And now we build upon that and go into week three. And so, I feel like this game was another example of two battle tested teams duking it out. I mean, they're not just slouches or anything of that nature. They did just play in the Super Bowl. And the Chiefs, I think, are perennial contenders in the AFC as long as Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback. But the Eagles capitalized on the Chiefs' cost mistakes within this game, which I think ultimately led to them leaving with the win. Despite the mistakes, despite playing at a loud stadium, despite not looking pretty and playing our best brand of ball, we still found a way to win that game. And like I said, we are 2-0. There's still concerns to be left for this team, do not get me wrong. But I do want to remind everybody that it is only week three on the season. Rust is inevitable in the early part of the season, as I remember vividly last year where the Eagles went to Tampa Bay, got absolutely torched, got absolutely smoked. No other way to put it around that. And I will admit, myself included, I wanted Nick Sirianni fired. And, I'm glad that he wasn't fired because I have a lot of respect for just how great of a coach he is, how he's great in that locker room as well. And so, like I said, I'm very happy that we didn't end up firing him. And that's really just goes to show that in the early part of the season, it's not in good faith to really be overreactionary. And that's goes to my point with the same Eagles team this year, just not to get overreactionary. In the early part of the season, a lot of early parts of the season are going to be tests for the team. Great teams know how to capitalize. They look at their mistakes and they figure out, what can I do to capitalize from these mistakes? What can we do to get better? Not so great teams keep making these same mistakes, and it kind of dictates how good or bad of a season that they're going to have. And so I just want to watch it all unfold, see how they can adjust, and see, you know, how they can be better, honestly, because I think that this team is different. But that goes into my takeaways. And, a lot of people aren't going to admit this, but I will. The Eagles are elite. As I said, people aren't ready to admit it, but what this team has is showing me in the early part of the season is that they aren't the same team. They aren't the Super Bowl hangover team from 2019, and they aren't the team that's trying to go out and get revenge from the 2023 team. I think that this team are shown to be proven winners, and they're going to be showing that throughout the entire course of the season. They just have a different mentality than the other two teams that I mentioned. And as I mentioned with mental toughness, I think that this game proved it. I feel like there were a lot of times in the game that Kansas City could have gotten the momentum from us and they could have honestly walked away with the game. But we capitalized on those mistakes as they didn't play a perfect game. And I feel like they had to play a perfect game in order to beat us. But, that's just how it goes. And like I said, I'm glad that we walked out with a win. I also think that this defense is going to be a cornerstone of the team this year. We held Patrick Mahomes to a 72.1 passer rating, along with 10 quarterback hits. I like to say that when you make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, he now looks human. And that's not to disrespect him in any way, as I still think that he is a tier one quarterback, and he's levels above all the other quarterbacks in the league. But when you make him human, that's when you start to you insert yourself in the game and you have a chance to win, in my opinion. And so I feel like the Eagles did that really well. We made big plays to help win this game, And it looks like this defense is going to be the best defense in the league once again this year, if not top three at the most. But credit to Vic Fangio for really igniting and instilling an identity within this team. And as everybody loves to say, defense wins championships. And if you're having our defense play like this in the early part of the season, we have a lot of untapped potential, honestly speaking. And so, just excited to see where that can go. I do want to talk about the tush push also. I know a lot of people hate it, personally speaking. I love it. I love the fact that no one can stop it. I love the fact that no one is good at it. I love the fact that they try to copy it as well too. And there are concerns when talking about the tush push. Don't get me wrong. And I'm going to be the middleman in this situation, as I do support it, but I do think it comes with a little bit of cons also. I do think we could have ran a couple more different plays other than the tush push against Kansas City, as I think we were kind of just looking forward to just doing the tush push in some certain parts of the game. But I'm also not the play caller as well too, as that ended up helping us win the game, and so I can't be mad at it. But I think the tush push does put a little bit of pressure on the officials, as it's not always formally ran, and that's not the Eagles' fault either. There are certain times where guys might be lined up offsides, or there might be false starts or neutral zone infractions, and there's speculation now that they probably could talk about banning it, and I think that that's honestly a huge cop out. It's a huge excuse as to why other teams aren't good at it and why you can't stop it. And so I think there just needs to be some kind of regulation or kind of rule that helps make the play legal in every other team's eye. I feel like you can start calling the false start, start calling the offsides, help the offensive side and defensive side of the ball line up on the correct side. And like I said, if you hate it, and I personally love it, but if you have a problem with it from after that, just line it up. Try and run the play. See how you can get better at either stopping the play or just, like I said, learning how to properly run the play. But apart from my takeaways in the game and all of that, I want to go over some my standouts as I did from last week. And so we're going to start with the defensive side of the ball. And, I got to start with the MVP of the game, Andrew Mukuba. He had 6 tackles, half a sack, 1 quarterback hit, 1 pass breakup, and 1 crucial interception. And, another Howie gem, as, I mentioned last week, and we knew that, y'all knew that, I knew that, etc., etc. Although Mukuba is undersized for a safety, I feel like he has that dog mentality in him. He plays with a high motor, and he tackles on open field, which I think is very important at the safety position. And he also makes key adjustments while in coverage as well. And I mentioned that, I wanted to see him in that C.J. Gardner-Johnson type of role. And I think he's meshing pretty well into that role. And I think he's only going to excel even higher as we go into the later part of the season. But that interception was really the key turning point and securing the momentum in that game. And, last week I shouted out Jahad Campbell, who was also another rookie and who was really the MVP of last week's game. But there's just something about rookies just being a plug and play and just making an immediate impact on Eagle, if you catch my drift. Moving on to Zadarius Smith. In only 20 defensive snaps, Zadarius Smith had 4 tackles, half a sack, and 1 tackle for loss. And, no training camp, barely any time to study the playbook, barely any time to, build a bond and chemistry with your defensive teammates. And he goes out there and immediately makes an impact. I like what I saw of him, as he's a perfect combination of both being strong and being quick off of the pass rush. He adds depth to this edge rush group now, as I think it'll play effect into not only fitness levels, but having your best guys line up in front. Last week, I raved about Josh Uche and, how he came out in his debut. But maybe we should just be talking about just the overall potential of this Eagles edge rush, as you have Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith, Josh Uche, and you throw in Zadarius Smith also in there as well too. As whether or not he gets more snaps, in the later part of the season, I'm very confident in this Eagles edge rush rotation, as I think we have some scary hours coming to the airwaves soon. So stay tuned, y'all. Before I go into the offensive side of the ball, I do want to shout out Jake Elliott. And we might see him return to that form that led to him getting a huge extension. And as he kicked this 58-yarder that, I didn't think he had any business kicking initially, but I'm glad he did. He was 100% for in kicking for field goals, as well as kicking a 51-yarder on top of that. And like I said, shout out to Jake the Make Man. Very happy to see this resurgence in him. But now moving on to the offensive side of the ball. Kevin Patullo. If there was one word I would describe for Kevin Patullo, it would be boring. I knew initially that Steven Spagnuolo was going to blitz heavy on the Eagles offense. And, it causes problems for Jalen Hurts, as it does for, any quarterback, really. And he didn't find a way to adjust to that for some odd reason. There were 0 targets over the middle of the field, as I remember watching the Chargers Kansas City game the prior week before in Brazil, and they were cooking Kansas City over across the middle. And so I thought he was going to look at the film at least, and see if there were going to be any changes. But we ran the exact same plays that we ran, honestly speaking, against Dallas. We only had one throw down the field, which was that crucial Devontae Smith catch that really was also another turning point in the game. So I'll give credit to that. But people are going to talk down on Jalen Hurts' 101 passing yards. And, that's okay and all that, he didn't play up to his standard. But how is it his fault? There were very few plays when looking at the route tree as well, too. There were very few plays where any receivers were open. And so, naturally speaking, you have to check it down to the running back. And so, like I said, I blame the route tree for that. I blame play calling for that. And with all the talent on the offensive side of the ball, you have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You even have Saquon Barkley as well, too. You even have John Mechie and Jahan Dotson. I mean, that's a lot of talent on the field. And it's really a shame that we look this bad on the offensive side. I mean, I'm not going to make any comparisons at all. And like I said, I don't want to be too overreactionary, but I'm getting the same vibes of this offense that Brian Johnson had. And I feel like he had that same type of MO at playing conservative, being predictable in your play calling, and just not adjusting on the fly or just not adjusting through the film. And that really leads me to my next standout. And, like I said, I don't want to get too negative with this, but I'm going to bring up A.J. Brown again. Firstly speaking, I'm sure that y'all want to hear about my fantasy team. And so I'm going to talk about that. A.J. Brown only scored 7.7 points for me this time around. I did get smoked, so it didn't really make a difference. But, I still was a little, disappointed about that. I mean, this time this week, he had 8 targets, 5 catches for 27 yards. And he had a crazy one-handed catch as well. And so I don't blame A.J. Brown for this lack of production, I want to say. As we need to throw in the ball more. We need to get him more involved and be able to cater some plays to him as well. As, these little hitch routes or little short slants, drag routes, any short route you could think of to where he's not going down the field, we need to minimize that, in my opinion. It's good to like get those plays when you want to get like 6 yards, and maybe get like a first down, but constantly running that the entire game, it's just boring. Like I said, it's boring, and so maybe I have him benched right now for this week. I'm contemplating starting him, and so y'all let me know if I should start him, but I don't think I want to start him this week. If he happens to go off, then I'll take that to the chin, but something's got to give. And so Kevin Patullo, that brings me back to you. You have a tough matchup this week. The Eagles are playing the Rams this week, and it doesn't get any easier this week as the Eagles go have another rematch as they go get up against the Rams in Philly. It's a rematch of the divisional game, as I like to say, the Saquon game, the Snow Edition, more specifically. As if people remember in that game, that was probably the closest that the Eagles were to potentially not playing in the Super Bowl, as we were looking to lose that game, had it not been for really a clutch Jalen Carter sack, which ultimately put the game away. But biggest story of this game is, as I mentioned in week 1, I think it's going to be the wide receiver duo. You have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who are, top 5 wide receiver duo in the league, in my opinion. As I said with Dallas, the biggest concern is going to be the secondary, as they didn't really show me a whole lot this past week against Kansas City, but it was a little bit of an easier matchup for them. So I guess I, can't cut them too loose. So I guess my biggest question for this week against the Rams is, can this Eagles defense, shut down the big play offense in the Rams? Can they neutralize Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams? Do I think that they're going to have a productive game? Yes, I do. But are we going to have them go for potentially 200 plus yards, or are we going to minimize that to maybe like 100 yards or so? I don't know. What I'm hoping is that the secondary shows me a little bit of discipline this week, and we neutralize the Rams and being able to minimize how many big plays they make in this game. But my bigger concern for this game is that I can talk about the defense and the secondary and this, that, and the third, but is the offense going to keep up? I have no doubt in my mind that the Rams are going to play to a T in terms of their offense and being able to target our secondary. That's not a doubt in my mind. But I'm more concerned is, has Kevin Patullo been watching film? Has he gotten in the lab? And I think if our offense can't keep up with the Rams' offense, then we've already shot ourselves in the foot, and now we're battling uphill from there. The run game was the key to us beating LA both times, and that might be the same thing this time around, as they don't really have much to stop the run. But knowing Sean McVay and how smart of a coach he is, I expect him to scheme around Saquon this time, as I don't think he wants to get the same result as he got from the past 2 games from last year. And like I said, Mr. Patullo, it is your time to shine. I just put the blueprint out there that he's probably going to scheme around Saquon. And so you have to come up with different plays. You have to minimize the inside runs, the outside pitches, or lining up in the pistol. We got to switch it up. We have to switch it up. And so, honestly speaking, y'all, I'm a bit conflicted this weekend. I'm not going to lie. I think this is going to be a real competitive matchup between two of the NFC's best. As I stated in my first episode, as I think the Eagles, the Rams, and the Packers, and maybe the Lions are the NFC standard. And so, like I said, it doesn't get any easier this week. And honestly, if the Eagles play to their identity of being an elite team, they'll find a way to win this game. I have no doubt in my mind about that. But that's not all. That doesn't ring true all the time. Maybe the offense looks like they have this, this entire season up to this point. And if it is the case with that, then I don't see us winning this game. If Sean McVay can find weaknesses and take advantage of it, then the Rams will find a way to win this game. I honestly think it's going to be a toss up, and like my expectation with that is that it's going to be between a shootout or it's going to be a 2-3 possession game, maybe, depending on who catches heat at the right time, at whatever time within the game. As you know, it's going to be a different kind of game this season. I don't think it's going to be what we saw against Dallas, what we saw against Kansas City. The Rams are a different team from both of those teams, and so my casual take for this game, really my keys to the game, is that it's time for the Eagles offense to break out. Going against a solid defense, I'm not going to say they're an elite defense, but they are a solid defense, especially the defensive line. It's time to take note from what happened these past 2 weeks with the offense. Be more creative. Mix it up. More timely plays on defense. More timely plays on offense. And here's to a hard-fought game, hopefully resulting in a win. Next time y'all see me, it'll be a reaction to everything week 3. Like I said, hope we walk out with a win. I'm very confident that we will win this game, but I'm very confident that, I can be showed a little bit different also. But moving around the league, as I do want to talk about what's going on around the league as well, as 2 weeks in, there's a lot of stories going on. And so first things first is that I might be wrong for my NFC East predictions. Not going to lie. I hope I see a little bit differently. But last week, the Cowboys beat the Giants in overtime. And, like I said, maybe I was wrong for putting the Giants second and putting the Cowboys last. I might have to flip-flop those positions more than likely. But I hope I'm wrong. Giants, y'all on the clock now. Let's step it up a little bit. And, I'm not rooting for y'all in any sense. But, I hate when my predictions go wrong, too. So let's step it up, please. Please. Miami Dolphins. They have a serious problem, in my opinion. Within their roster, within their quarterback, within the coaching. I mean, it's just a lot going on there. And, I would hate to be a Dolphins fan, but luckily I'm not. The Indianapolis Colts. They have surprised me a little bit this season. Daniel Jones, shout out to Daniel Jones. He's looked a lot like his rookie season with the Giants. And he's, honestly, up to this point, he's peaked thus far. And so I'm really excited to see what the Colts can do in the weak AFC South division. But, time will have to tell to see how far they go this year. Joe Burrow is also missing an extended period of time as he just got surgery for a turf toe injury. That shakes up the AFC North, as I think now it's going to be a toss-up between both the Steelers and the Ravens within that division. Which brings me to my next point, that the Ravens are elite, honestly, and I do expect them to win their division, and time will tell with that. But speaking of elite teams in the AFC, the Bills are also elite, and my biggest concern is, are the Ravens, are the Bills, are they finally going to get past Patrick Mahomes? Time will have to tell with that, as, I expect all 3 of those teams to go deep in the AFC this season, and we'll just have to see. Speaking of elite, the Packers, Green Bay Packers defense more specifically, it is elite. It is elite. I don't think they're the best defense in the league, and I think time will have to tell for that also. But they are minimum top 5 defense. There's no question about that, especially with the addition of Micah Parsons. There is no question about that. And within the NFC North also, I cannot wait to play the Lions. That's all I'm gonna say at that. I like what I'm seeing from them this season, but we're having Jared Goff better than Jalen Hurts talks, and that's just making me sick to my stomach. And so Kevin Patullo, do not let my goat get slandered like this, please, please. And lastly, are the Chargers contenders this year, or am I overreacting? They are in first place, and they have looked good these past two games. And am I overreacting? Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all expectations are for week 3, Eagles Rams, and what else y'all may think across the league as well. But that's all I have for today. Make sure to follow, like, and share on all platforms. Make sure to give me your casual takes as well too. And I'll see y'all next time. Go Birds.